Uh, I think I'm learning how to float more lately.
Yeah.
Whatever dumb thing that means. I really didn't mean for that to be on the recording. They started recording and caught me, but I was mid-sentence. So hi everybody. Here we go with Sam again.
People often think that transcendence means, higher.
Mm-hmm. Like up toward the heaven or something like that.
Yeah. But the Buddha said there's no such thing as transcendence. Because it's a relative term, it's a concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's safe to play around with concepts, though. And even if it's heaven or if it's seemingly utopian or whatever it is, it's okay to play around with the concepts. Just maybe, I wonder if you could say something about that, if you don't mind me asking about, using concepts or being in the world somehow, and then going beyond concepts or not being of the world. And how does Zen allow for us to learn a delicate balance with who we are about that? Because I'm either on one side or the other of that polarity,
Yeah. Okay. Trying to think where to start here. Well,
if you want me to ask a better question, I can do that.
No. It was a great question. I just have to think of an answer that is worthy. First of all, playing around with concepts. Let me just talk about that for a second. This is the world of samsara. I mean, this is what we're in. We're constantly playing with concepts, right? We're trying them on. We're checking them out. We're comparing one to another. Everything is dualistic. Everything is relative. And so playing around with concepts, you can do that till the day you die, but it's not really going to help you that much. I mean, it's still the world of suffering. So having said that, let me go to the question of transcendence, though, which is also a concept. And, I'm not saying that concepts are bad or good. The Buddha looked at these things as, are they useful? Are they useful for realizing our Buddha nature? And they're not for that. They might be useful for holding a job. Might be useful for making your way in the US or anywhere in the world, and that kind of thing. But they're not really useful for enlightenment. And enlightenment just means seeing the true nature of yourself, of self, and the true nature of the world. And the fact is and the reason that we always say that you're already a Buddha, you just don't realize it, is because it's the concepts that have gotten in the way. Now, you don't want to, the idea is not to get rid of them or to have a balance or anything like that. I heard Jane, I'll let her in. She can jump in the middle. And maybe the reason people think the word transcendent is higher, because in a way, as a concept, you could kind of see that. In other words, you have gone beyond concepts, and they're not gone. You've just can see them for what they are, which is mental constructions. Okay. That's a very big step to make in Buddhism and Zen, is to be able to see the world as it is. We sometimes say the absolute world, but that's kind of a concept as well. But from there, you can kind of look back and see your concepts and, as objects, and that's what they are. They're mental objects. And every single concept is that. So that's the original state of things, is without concepts. Concepts are a human construction. They don't exist in nature, you might say, or they don't exist in the world. They, a tree, we call it a tree, but a tree doesn't, it's just a living thing, that, I mean, you can't really say anything about it because it's, for one, it's constantly changing. So you can't see the same tree twice, or they often say you can't step in the same river twice because it's different water, it's moving, and the tree is different every second. You might look back at it, there's something changed about it. And this goes to the maybe useful concept of understanding emptiness, which is that nothing exists that has a permanent or intrinsic or identity or self or anything else. These are all labels that we put on as humans. So the idea in Zen, particularly for new students and even for old students who haven't got there yet, the idea is to study and to practice various different practices and, sort of lay the groundwork for this breakthrough that we have, where concepts are dropped. And you often see in Zen literature, drop off body and mind. It's really referring to concepts. And and you see that all concepts are human constructions, that I've constructed my own and everybody else has constructed theirs, and they all differ, sometimes a little and sometimes a lot, which can lead to conflicts, internal conflicts even, because we might have two concepts that don't really, they kind of negate each other, or you can't include them both at the same time. So this is the world of samsara. It's concepts, it's human constructions or mental constructions, and they become very solidified in ourselves as our personal identity, that I'm this or I'm that. If I was to ask any of you, who are you? You would probably, most people would probably say, well, my name is this. Okay, well, that's a concept. It was made up by your parents. And you can form concepts around your name, even that you like it or you don't like it, or you wish you had a different name, or some people change their names, in a sort of futile attempt to adjust their name in order to feel better about their identity. But so people often will say, well, I'm a dad, or I work here, I work there, I'm an engineer, I'm a plane pilot, I'm a homemaker, I'm whatever. And then we also, there's all the racial things. I'm white, I'm black, I'm brown. And, I heard a great comment the other day where this lady said, I actually can't actually describe the color of my skin. Right, you can't. These mass generalized labels, and just because someone's white doesn't mean they all buy into the same culture or the same politics or anything else, whether they're good or they're bad. Or just because they're black doesn't mean that they like rap and hip hop, all blacks, doesn't mean they all, anything, right? But, the way our society is, we have these labels and stereotypes and judgments, and we get into huge fights about what racism is and all the rest of it, right? This is all concepts. So Zen is the only study that I know of that actually, I mean, there may be others, but I mean, general Buddhism, where it's recognized that concepts are the source of our suffering. And this also, beyond that, the source of our inability to see the truth of things. And it's explained over and over and over and over again in every sutra and every book from, you know, time immemorial to the ones that are being put out now. And even in Roshi's books, you know, they hammer this point over again and again. So, and people oftentimes are like, well, geez, if I drop all my concepts, you know, I'm just going to be a incapacitated puddle of a human, you know, that won't be able to function. And maybe I'll die, or maybe people won't like me, or I'll just be a screw up. Who knows, you know? And because that's how attached we are to our concepts, that I have these certain capabilities, and I have these certain personality characteristics, and I have these certain ethics, and I have these certain cultural likes, and, you know, all of it, right? I mean, I go on and on. And all of that stuff is made up by humans. It's kind of funny. You know, it's kind of funny. I mean, I get how that started, you know, from desire to live, right? Desire to survive. And you start to, you know, maybe even as a microbe, it has sense organs of some kind, and it starts to get to know its surroundings, and part of its surroundings are more helpful for survival than others. And it, you know, developed a way to get around. You know, even bacteria have little legs and things to move around. And, you know, evolution tries everything a million times over every day. And the ones that make it, and the ones that don't. Well, all of a sudden, here we are, we're humans, and we've developed these capacities, brain power, and the ability to have language and mathematics and all these things to measure the world. And they have been helpful for us to survive, although I don't know for how long. You know, we could be our own worst enemy, and so far it kind of looks that way. But that's nature, you know, it keeps trying stuff, and nature isn't directing anything to do anything. It's just trying everything, and whatever survives is fine with nature. And whatever doesn't is fine with nature. And by nature, I mean the whole universe. I mean, you know, the dinosaurs apparently got wiped out by a meteorite, and the subsequent air pollution from that, and the volcanoes and smoke, and, you know, had a winter or something that killed them. I don't know. I'm not a paleontologist, but that's kind of roughly what I gather from that. And nature just, you know, whatever was left just kept going, right? And apparently mammals were, you know, they're sort of rudimentary mammals that were around then. They were kind of like little mice and rats and shrews and things like that, you know, were able to survive. And so that's the process, you know. And there's, you know, I'm not going to say there is or isn't a God, but I know that people who think there is a God think that there's someone directing all this. That's fine. I personally think it just sort of self-directed, this sort of thusness of the world that we live in. So along with all our other concepts, you know, we've been able to develop religion and philosophy. And these things were sort of part of the rise of civilization, and people wanted to know how to get along, and the people that got along survived better than the ones that didn't. So natural selection again. So the ones that maybe had better philosophies and religions, you know, for their time, maybe they survived. But even to this day, of course, we have so many people explaining or telling us how we should behave. And that if you behave this certain way, you'll have good karma, maybe they say, or you'll go to heaven, or you won't. You know, who knows? I don't know anything about those things, you know, and the Buddha sort of famously didn't really answer any questions like that. But what he did know is, and what drove him to know is, he felt suffering and he saw suffering in everyone. And he was a very gifted person, you know, and he set about on a mission to get to the bottom of it, to find out what is the cause of suffering. Why do these things happen? Why do bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people? And, you know, and it wasn't like he was the only one that ever thought about that, because there were many religions prior to him that had done some groundwork, particularly Hinduism, you know, into these things. But he tried these various things, and I've told the story before, but, you know, he spent a few years trying various practices. And of course, ultimately he had his enlightenment, and he saw things as they are, and without all the labels, he was able to drop his concepts. And when your concepts are dropped, the world just exposes itself to you in its entirety. You get that? It's all there already. It's all there, broadcasting itself 24/7 to you and to me and everyone. But we get caught up in this narrow sort of separate self thing, my separate identity, my separate life, my separate, you know, whatever. And most people don't take the time to even consider anything else. It's just, how do I do better in the world of concepts and relative life? Not that that's bad, but it's just part of the, you know, it's just partial. It's just not the whole picture. And wouldn't we rather have the whole picture? Wouldn't that be nicer? If we could see the entire beingness of everything, and understand that we're all made of the same stuff, you know. I mean, we read it all the time, you know, we're all stardust. Well, it's true, you know, and here we are. And so that's why people feel oneness. When you drop your concepts, then the world is suddenly completely open and completely obvious and clear about what it is, which is an ever-changing mass of stuff that manifests into all these things that we perceive with our eyes, our ears, our smell, touch, taste, and then we give them names and we identify them. And, you know, even the word tree is not the same sound in many languages, right? So we've made up these just sounds that we make. We make sounds, and the ones who understand that group of sounds, like English, you know, we can communicate some things, but it doesn't mean the word tree is the ultimate word for tree. I don't know what the word in Swahili is, but it's certainly just as valid a word for a tree as the word tree. So it's all, it's all just a vapor, like a cartoon or I don't know what, but at any rate,
Like
so
the
yeah,
notion of, yeah.
What's that, Sam?
I was just like the notion of us floating, because before I was joking about the smallest of the group, and we have such a small group, we might be able to transcend. And I was thinking about floating and stuff like that. But what's
Yeah.
much more useful than that is just to kind of drop the concepts. Because I felt the kind of same thing about how much has been weighing me down and how much of it is really me and myself holding me back. And it's just like you said, though, to be able to actually experience that with a group of people here and not try to drop my concepts, be like, oh man, I can let a lot of stuff go. Like the frenetic energy around a woman that I like, and I'm all like a school kid again. Maybe, some stuffs I don't even have to talk about because I'm trying to do some serious Zen stuff here.
I can
So,
relate.
you know,
Yeah, I mean, life is life. So dropping your concepts doesn't mean that they're gone or that we should never have a concept. It just, then you see them for what they are, and they don't have quite the same hold on you. Okay. And you're able to, they don't run your life, you run their life. Does that make sense?
mhm.
So, and one of the difficulties is, you know, how do you try to drop your concepts? I mean, you can't put out fire with fire, right? So you can't think your way to getting rid of your concepts. You have to relax them away, if that makes sense. And meditation is particularly useful for that. We talk about the mind settling down, and you kind of detach a little bit and you sort of observe your thoughts going through. And after a while, you just kind of, you forget about them. They just kind of don't happen. And the world is exposed before you. The same world that was there when you were having a concept. It's just that now you see it. And you see concepts for what they are. So, and then it's, it can be kind of funny. I mean, you just like go, holy crap, just all this, like you say, carrying this weight around for all your life. All of a sudden that weight is gone. And that's where the joy comes from, right? The joy of this sort of Kensho experience is directly related to just dropping the baggage, even for 10 seconds or a minute or, however. But it's such a relief, right? That people feel joy from that. And particularly the first few times. But then those things, even though you see them for what they are and you realize, well, okay, I have these concepts, and maybe some of the concepts are going to change right then too. Like you might change your mind about some of them, but they also won't have the same hold on you. And so there's a bit of relief, even when you're, quote, back in the world. You've never left the world, okay, but back in that world, you might say, and they don't have quite the same hold on you, and you have a little more freedom. You're liberated, right? We see that all the time in the literature. That's what liberation is: liberation from your own concepts. And you can pick them back up, and you still remember, and you still know how to drive a car and wash the dishes and chase girls and whatever. But one of the other things, though, is in terms of the relationships with people, is you have the sudden realization that everyone else in the world is also carrying this weight around. And so the wisdom part is seeing things as they are. The compassion part is seeing the suffering of everyone from that. And that has a very great impact as well. And you suddenly know that how much you've suffered, and you know that everyone else is suffering, because you've had this experience that shows you everything is one, and everyone is kind of the same fundamentally and struggling with the same problem. This is what the Buddha saw. So, the urge to do something about it definitely comes up, and people, and a lot of times for new students or anybody, anybody can have this experience. They don't have to be Zen students. People have had this experience walking through the woods, or just like sitting somewhere or just reading something. But it feels, and it is so important that we want to go tell everybody about it. And which can be a little bit of a mistake, because people, I drove my friends crazy. I mean, they had me pegged, right? They had me, this is Bruce. He's a good worker. He's got a good job. He likes to play basketball and music, and he's our buddy for this and that and the other thing. And this is how he fits into our lives. And then all of a sudden I'm going, you guys, listen to me for a minute. The world is not what you think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's my daughter.
Where's your mom?
She went outside. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I go, Buddhism, man. It's right on. It's like the truth. It's like you gotta do it. You gotta meditate. You gotta, read this book by Thich Nhat Hanh. You gotta, and I'm just like driving people nuts, right? But the urge is there. And honestly, I wouldn't be here today right now doing what I'm doing if I didn't still have that urge. But my technique is refined quite a bit, and my understanding has refined quite a bit. And not that I'm perfect, because Genpo Roshi will often look at these talks and he'll call me and go, I wouldn't have said it quite that way. And we talk about it. He says, certain words, are going to get you in trouble. You got to watch out, And I'm like, okay, thank you. And he's been doing this for years.
Don't you love that he's paying attention, though?
Yeah. All right, get out of here, you.
Oh, because, well, I mean, guarantee you getting any, well, I won't get into me and you and all this kind of a stuff, but, I just want to say, and maybe somebody else wants to talk, but I appreciate you sharing with me. And it makes me, by you bringing up the concepts and things, it's making it easier for me to kind of let go in a way, that I'm still sort of floundering a little bit, but you're turning on the light for me somehow. And I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because this is why I'm here. This is why I've spent these years studying with Genpo Roshi and trying to refine my own whatever.
Yeah. Well, and you're not quite giving me the answer. And if I were seeking the answer, here's what it is, but by you talking, I can sort of feel like everything is finding its own place, and I don't have effort so much. And I don't know how that's happening, but I just appreciate that that's happening, and don't try to analyze it so much with my mind or what I take to be my mind, or whatever. Great.
Thank you, Sam. You said I didn't really give you the answer, and because there kind of isn't an answer.
Right. Yeah.
There's that story that Roshi just told not too long ago, where the master said, there's no teachers of Zen. And the student said, well, you're right here in front of us. You're a teacher. You're teaching Zen. He goes, I didn't say there was no Zen. There's no teachers of Zen, because it can't be taught. It can be discussed, and it can be elaborated, and like we do here, or if we read books and things. But ultimately, the experience is yours. And that's what makes it a solo practice that's nice to have people with you on the way. But it's up to you. Okay, Jane's got her hand up.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. I actually was going to follow up on something you said on Tuesday because I had to leave the call early.
Mhm.
And because I thought it was quite a contribution when it was beautiful the way Mark asked for what do you want from a teacher. I thought it inspired a really lively and juicy conversation.
Yeah,
And your contribution was, you know,
approval.
seeking approval, right?
Yeah,
And that was very helpful to me because I see that in myself too.
of course.
Not only in this context, but in a lot of contexts.
Oh, yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah. So that's a big one. And the desire to please and to be loved and, all of that, and it's a really strong urge. It really is. So I just wanted to comment on that because it connected with me and um, and it helped me, and I think maybe others on the call, kind of have a more lighthearted approach to it. That it's just part of being human, right? So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I first saw that about myself quite some time ago. And it's a little bit embarrassing to say, because I don't know, for whatever reason, but but it's true. And I still do. I want my daughter to like me. I want my wife to like me. I want Roshi to like me. I want you guys to like me. And it can be, it can be something that um is subtle or medium or kind of overt, that we see in ourselves or in other people. There's all sorts of popular phrases like butt kisser and things like that that refer to that. But it is, I mean, we have to be honest with ourselves, right? I mean, we have to be brutally honest with ourselves about these things, because if we're not, then those things will drive us, and they're not helpful. And it doesn't mean seeking approval is bad, because it can also be turned into, good intentions. And, I mean, it's tricky, right? But
yeah,
like all the voices that we bring out and talk about with Roshi, that's one that, needs to be addressed, right?
yeah.
And yeah, so thank you for saying that. I had to blurt it out because it's on my
Well,
mind.
my perception was that it took the conversation to a deeper, even more authentic level, because it just, which I mean, I appreciated what everybody said, really, but
Yeah.
that in particular stood out because that's the kind of shadowy side.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, you know,
Well,
yeah.
because we have an ego, and our ego
Do we
is
ever?
right. It's like,
Yeah.
well, why would I be seeking approval? I'm already awesome. Right? We tell ourselves,
Well,
I
the
already
thing
get it.
about ego, the thing about ego is that, there's never enough.
There's never
Never,
enough, right?
never enough of anything.
Well, I had a great conversation with Mark after that class, actually, sort of about that. And I said, um, I have this funny feeling that if Roshi called me up and he said, you know what, Bruce, you got it figured out. I'm making you a Roshi, which is kind of the end of the trail, for Zen
Yeah.
students, right? Then you're on your own. And I told Mark, I said, if he did that, I still wouldn't be satisfied. And I said, partly because I would have doubts about him at that point. I'd say, because what I think the other side of this is, I know I have flaws, you know, I know I'm not perfect. I know I don't get it all the way. I know, you know, so then I would think, well, he's full of shit if he's telling me that I'm, you know, and Mark and I were laughing about it, and I said, you know, I really think that ultimately you have to approve yourself.
Well,
And
yeah,
I think,
exactly. And
and I
and
think,
the vehicle is true self for me anyway.
yeah,
I mean, I'm in the state of true self. It's all there, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but that's there 100% of the time, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's just it just obscures. That's all.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like concepts.
I mean, the thinking clouds it over.
Yeah. No, it all comes back to that.
Yeah.
It all
Yeah.
comes back to we have all of a sudden we have these arising of concepts, and uh, you know, then it's obscured, or you know, that seem the word they use in Zen is thusness, that the world is thusness. This is it. And you know, it's not a state. It's actually the only state of mind is actually the state of mind of the relative. That's where all the states are.
Mhm.
The actual true. I mean, I've been reading Nagarjuna, you know, and of course he has all these negations, right? That destroy concepts, and one of them is that there's no true self. There's no self. There's no true
Yeah.
self. There's no false self. There's no self. There's not. Drop. Forget it. Forget it.
Well,
Forget it.
it's a vehicle to, yeah.
Yeah, it's right. It's like a raft, right, to get to the other shore.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I get that, and this is why there's so much literature in Buddhism, and why there needs to be, because we need to kind of just keep chipping away, right?
Mhm.
And having better and deeper understanding and deeper experience as well. But ultimately it's the experience that does it. You know, a famous Zen master, Huineng, you know, the sixth patriarch, he was like 16, right? And he was illiterate, and he heard somebody reciting the Diamond Sutra, and that's all it took. Boom, you know, he had the experience. And if anybody who has the experience could write the Diamond Sutra, they could write all that literature, because the experience, that's the wisdom that comes from that experience, and then it's just a matter of figuring out how to express it. And so all Zen teachers and Zen masters and writers of sutras and all these things, it's just hundreds of thousands of people throughout history who have tried to express it in another way, and all of it falls short, because none of it is the experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so and this is why, you know, there's some Zen masters that go burn your library, get rid of all this crap, and just have the experience, you know, and drop all the concepts you have about all the stuff you've read. And of course, here tonight, I've been, you know, mansplaining for half an hour about, well, you got to get rid of your concepts, and this is how, you know, and this is just me doing the same thing, which is, you know, trying to express what I have experienced in my own way, and my experiences are partial as well. So, but you know, do the best I can. But yeah, there's a great book called by Huang Po called On the Transmission of Mind, and it's probably the most succinct and clear, and it's a fairly short book, set of really kind of conversational exchanges between him and his students. Who's Obaku. He lived in the 9th century, Chinese name is Huang Po. That book is well worth reading if you just, because after you read that book, you go, well, I don't really need to read anything else, because he's pretty much laid it out really clear, and there's nothing else I could read that would be any more straightforward than what he just said. And now I need to throw that book away and just focus on relaxing my concepts away
Mhm.
and just letting them fall. I mean, Dogen said the same thing. I mean, they've all said the same thing, but Dogen's famous one is to study the Buddha way is to study the self, and to study the self is to forget the self, and to forget the self is to be awakened by the 10,000 dharmas. So translating that is, the Buddha way is, you know, being honest, brutally honest with yourself about whether there's a self or not, and what the problem is, and about understanding concepts. And in that process, you negate any substance that the self seemed to formerly have. And you ultimately forget the self. I say forget about the self. Forget about it. And then when the self is forgotten, so then you're awakened by the 10,000 dharmas. Well, in Buddhist lingo, the 10,000 dharmas is just the world as it is, and you're awakened by it because you see that it's so incredibly remarkable without your concepts of it. It doesn't need your concepts. Okay, so same thing over and over. And I pretty much, well, I wholly and 100% believe that, and so I'm not going to stray from that line too much, or at all. It's just that my style or my way or my language, is all I have to kind of work with.
Well, and through the framework of the triangle, Roshi's triangle, and the big mind process. I mean, there is a place for the thinking mind and concepts and language,
Mhm.
because that's how we communicate with each other, and that's how we first, for me anyway, that's kind of like, it's like a ladder, and that's the first few steps of the ladder to a deeper understanding or awakening or awareness.
Yeah.
It comes through the mind cognition first,
Mhm.
and then, and I'm just describing my experiences anyway.
Yeah. And what's really important about Roshi's triangle too is that obviously it's a dualistic method of trying to explain things, right? So there's the relative on this side, there's the absolute on this side, and then there's the apex at the top, which is the combination of the two. And so the idea isn't to drop concepts permanently and never have another one again, because you would be truly non-functional. So, but from the absolute side, you see them for what they are. That's why I kind of put it that way. In other words, you see the usefulness and the trouble that comes with it. And then the process from there, just like in Tozan's 5 ranks, is to kind of bring that back in and then go back and forth until it becomes realized and actualized in your own life, which is the way it's always been. In other words, concepts are not separate from the rest of the world either.
Yeah.
Okay. And our thinking, I mean, it's all one thing. The concepts, the no concepts, it's all one thing. but we split it up and divided up in this way to kind of, guide people
It
along.
clarifies. It really clarifies for me.
Yeah,
It,
it
it's like
does.
I start making the distinctions.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere, and that's
Yeah.
where all Zen starts. Is that it was with that.
Because it's all one, but there's also distinctions. I mean, both are true. I mean,
Yeah, at the same time.
at exactly the same time. Yeah.
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 So then the question becomes, though, I think, when you get to that point, is what is it that is seeing this? What is it that's having concepts? What is it that's seeing no concepts? What is it that has blended concepts with no concepts?
This is a koan.
Yeah.
Um,
So I'll leave you with that one.
what?
I'll leave you with that one. What is it?
Okay.
What is it that's having this experience?
That's a good one. That's a very good one.
Don't try to explain it, but meditate on that one.
No, I'm already feeling it some. Or yeah, having an experience, I should say.
Yeah. Steve or Sam, you got anything?
Well, I love it. And I'll just say one thing, and then if Steve wants to talk, but it's beautiful because it's like the concept of heaven, and I don't know whether I believe or not, but just experiencing is good enough for me. And the question about who experiences heaven, I can't say I experience heaven right now. I'm not ready to pass that koan or anything. I'm probably a little bit like Jane, but it's just interesting to open up my mind to something like that and for allow it to be open without me doing some stupid thing to try to do it, or I'm gonna blah blah blah. I don't know. It just feels very nice. Like I don't know how to show someone a seamless tomb or something, or I don't know how to pass, or I don't know this, or I don't know that. And for the first time, it's not like where Roshi says, "Be one with the not knowing." It's just kind of happening by the way that things are unfolding for me, and I couldn't ask for more.
Yeah.
So those are my 2 cents.
Yeah. This question of what is it can be applied to everything. What is it that is tasting this food? What is it that's driving this car? What is it that's speaking on Zoom? What is it that sees and understands? What is it? Or sees and doesn't understand? I think this is a good place to stop for the night. If you don't mind, I'm going to go hang out with my daughter. So really appreciate you guys coming. Thank you so much. And
Bruce, this is great. This is great. You're wonderful. Your talks are wonderful. Really very helpful, inspiring.
I appreciate your approval.
Yes.
I'm in heaven.
I wanted to tell you too, that like Jane did, thank you for what you said.
You're welcome, Cindy.
Or-
Yeah.
That because see, it's the personal,
Yeah.
for me.
It's all personal.
Yeah, it is all personal. But what you said is really personal. So thank you for that. And thank you for tonight.
Yeah. Stephen, did you have something before I go? I kind of stopped before you had a chance. No. All right. I'll see you guys. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.